last sunrise never arrives. In the plains, wheat freezes mid-sway under a sky that should be blue, but stays the color of wet stone. Torches hiss in the wind like threatened animals. Every shadow becomes a doorway, and every doorway breathes. A child villager runs for the bell, trips, and looks up at eyes blinking inside the dark. Too many, too close. Somewhere beyond the tree line, something laughs without a mouth, and the horizon never brightens. If you want more cinematic what-if stories like this, tap like and subscribe while the torches are still lit. And tell everyone in the comments, which biome would you try to defend if the sun never came back, and why? The bell finally rings, a panicked iron clang that ricochets through the village. Doors slam, shutters snap closed. Farmers who have never missed a harvest night in their lives drag composters into doorways like barricades. The golem patrols faster, iron feet chewing ruts into the path, head turning too late toward every sound. Above them, the moon hangs low and wrong, a pale coin that does not drift. Stars do not wheel. Time feels stuck, as if the world has been paused on the most dangerous frame. At the edge of the plains, a player named Sable sprints with a stack of logs and a single thought that keeps repeating like a heartbeat. Daylight is late. Daylight is late. Daylight is late. She has slept in a bed. She has waited. She has watched the sky with a kind of anger usually reserved for enemies. Nothing changes. A zombie lunges from tall grass and catches her shoulder. The hit is dull, familiar, survivable. The second zombie is not. It wears chainmail. It moves with a purpose that feels coordinated. Sable slashes, retreats, slashes again, and backs into the village gate, just as the golem collides with the mob like a thrown anvil. "Inside!" Sable shouts, though no one is outside to hear her. From a rooftop, a librarian villager peers through a crack in the shutters, eyes wide and wet. His name, if anyone bothered to learn it, is Varro. He has been counting nights by the ache in his joints and the number of times the bell rings. And he knows something no one else in the village has dared to say out loud. This is not a long night. This is the new shape of the world. Far away, in a spruce taiga where snow muffles sound, another player kneels beside a campfire that refuses to feel warm. Her name is Lark. She is a redstone builder, a mind that sees systems before she sees faces. She watches the smoke climb and vanish into the same dim ceiling, and she does the first rational thing anyone has done since the sun failed. She tests the rules. She places a bed. She sleeps. She wakes to the same moon, the same stars, the same heavy darkness pressing on the treetops. She checks her clock, then laughs once, sharp and humorless. Then it is not time, she says to no one. It is the sky. In the desert, where darkness should at least reveal the cold geometry of dunes, a wandering trader sits by two llamas and listens to husks shuffle like dry paper. He has traveled through storms and raids and the quiet cruelty of empty roads, and he has never heard the desert sound like this. 1,000 soft footsteps, all moving toward the same place. He grips his lead and whispers, "Not tonight." But it is always tonight. The first escalation comes as a sound, not a sight. A deep horn from the direction of the pillager outpost, rolling across biomes like thunder that has learned intention. In the plains village, Varro flinches at the note, because he recognizes it from stories traded in daylight. Raids. They are not supposed to begin without provocation. They are not supposed to come without warning. They are not supposed to repeat in a world where morning resets courage. Sable hears it too. She is in the center of the village now, laying torches in a frantic ring, counting her coal as if numbers can protect people. Her inventory is a miserly thing. She has been saving iron for tools, not armor. She has been saving diamonds for later, as if later is guaranteed. A pillager bolt slams into the bellpost, vibrating the metal with a scream. Another bolt hits a farmer in the calf. The farmer falls and the golem turns. And for a moment, the village survives on a single iron body, trying to be everywhere at once. Sable climbs onto a roof and sees the raid banner in the dark like a torn piece of night. She sees shapes beyond it, ravagers, heavier than they should be, their breath steaming. She sees witches already throwing bottles, green arcs that burst into poison clouds that hang longer in still air. She has one thought, clean and terrifying. There will be no dawn to burn them away. Varro presses his forehead to the wood of his door, listening to the village become a battlefield. He clutches an emerald like a talisman because it is the only thing he owns that has ever made anyone treat him as valuable. His wife, a farmer, whispers from the bed, "The golem will stop them." Varro does not answer. He knows the golem can be worn down. He knows iron can be chipped. He knows raids end when pillagers die, or when villagers do. In the taiga, Lark hears the same horn, faint but unmistakable. She looks at her redstone components spread on the snow like bones. Repeaters, comparators, a few pistons. She has been building a daylight sensor array for a project that was supposed to open doors with the sunrise. She places the sensor anyway. It sits on the ground like a blind eye, and it never changes. Lark's hands stop shaking, not because she is calm, but because she has made a decision. If the sky no longer provides safety, then safety must be manufactured. She begins gathering spruce logs with a speed that borders on fury, already designing walls in her head. In the desert, the wandering trader does not run. He cannot. He is surrounded by husks that do not burn in the sun because the sun is absent. He watches one of his llamas get pulled down, its muffled bray swallowed by sand. He throws a potion of invisibility at himself, and for a heartbeat he believes the old tricks will work. A husk turns its head anyway, as if it can smell him. It reaches into the air and grabs his sleeve. The trader dies without spectacle, dragged into a shallow hollow while the stars stare blankly. When the husks are done, the desert is quiet again, and his remaining llama stands alone, lead trailing like a severed vein. The world begins to learn, biome by biome, that night is not a phase. It is an occupation. By the third cycle of sleeplessness, crops in the plains stop growing. Bees do not leave their hives. Villagers stop gathering at workstations because the paths between houses are killing fields. The village becomes a collection of locked rooms and whispered prayers to mechanics that no longer answer. Sable becomes the village's moving torch. She runs coal from chest to chest, rationing flame like food. She kills what she can, blocks what she cannot, and watches the golem take hit after hit until its iron skin looks bruised. Varro begins writing in a book, hands cramped, recording each change like a witness in a trial. No sunrise, he writes, no crop growth. Hostiles do not despawn. Raiders return faster. The bell rings until it sounds like it hates us. He underlines the last line so hard the quill tears the page. In the taiga, Lark's first walls go up. A square of spruce around her camp, then a second ring. Then trenches that funnel mobs into pits. She builds with the cold efficiency of someone who cannot afford emotion. Yet at night, With the same night pressing down, she hears skittering beyond the spikes and feels something like loneliness trying to climb the walls. She starts broadcasting smoke signals, campfires stacked in patterns on a hill, hoping another player will see. She does not know if anyone is still alive to read them. Under the ocean, where darkness has always lived, the drowned become kings. Kelp forests sway like hair in a slow current. Tridents flash. A guardian's beam cuts through water like a blade of pale blue, and even the fish seem to swim more cautiously, as if the sea senses that the surface has become as dangerous as the deep. On the fifth endless night, Sable finds the first clue that the world is not merely stuck, but altered. A skeleton she kills drops a piece of paper. Not a map, not a book. A folded scrap marked with the harsh geometry of Illager script, but translated in the blunt simplicity of a player's language. The sun is buried. Sable reads it twice, then 3 times, as if repetition will change the words. Her breath fogs. Her fingers tighten until the paper creases. Varro sees it and whispers, "Buried where?" Sable looks toward the horizon, toward the direction of the outpost, toward the black silhouette of a woodland mansion far beyond, rumored and half forgotten. "Someone did this," she says. In the taiga, Lark receives her own clue in a different form. A wandering cleric villager, alone on a snowy path, banging on her gate with a desperation that feels human. Lark nearly shoots him out of reflex. She stops only because he speaks, voice trembling. "Stronghold," the cleric says, holding up an eye of ender like a green tear. "The sky is wrong. The old ones said, if the light is taken, the frame must be broken." Lark opens the gate and drags him inside. "What old ones?" she asks. The cleric points vaguely, as if history is a direction. "Ancient city, deep dark. The warden listens. The mansion speaks. The end watches. Everything watches. But the sun does not." Lark stares at the eye of Ender until its surface reflects her own face, pale and strained. She thinks of systems again. If daylight is a rule, then someone has edited the rule. She thinks of who edits rules: Illagers, ancient builders, or something that predates both. The first major turning point hits the plains village like a hammer. The iron golem falls. It happens at the edge of the well, where the golem has been fighting for what feels like days. A ravager slams it into a wall. Witches splash weakness. Pillagers fire until the air is a lattice of bolts. The golem swings, crushing 2, 3, 4 attackers, but its movement's slow. It staggers. Sable runs toward it, screaming wordlessly, swinging her sword at anything that moves. Varro watches from a window crack, unable to move, because he understands that he is watching the village's last daylight die. The golem collapses with a sound like a door closing. Its vine-covered arms go still. For a moment, nothing happens, as if even the raid is shocked. Then the pillagers cheer. The bell rings again, not from a villager's hand, but from a bolt striking it, a cruel imitation of alarm. Sable backs up, chest heaving, and realizes the village is no longer defensible. Not with torches, not with courage, not with a single player and a handful of trapped villagers. She makes the decision that will haunt her. She will lead whoever can run out through the back fields, toward the river, toward the caves, toward anywhere that can be sealed. "Move," she tells Varro through the door. "Take only food. Take books. Take beds." Varro's wife clutches a bundle of seeds as if they are children. Varro clutches his journal. The villagers pour out in a terrified line, and behind them, the village burns. not with fire, but with motion. Mobs flooding streets that used to hold markets. As they flee, Sable looks back once. The bell swings gently in the wind, ringing without anyone touching it, a sound that follows them into the dark like a promise of pursuit. Perspective shifts to the woodland mansion, where the second escalation has been brewing in silence. Inside its endless corridors, evokers stand around a table carved with a sun symbol that has been scratched out. They speak in low tones, not because they fear being overheard, but because reverence demands quiet. An Illager captain places a block on the table, a daylight sensor cracked and blackened. It does not glow. The surface panics, the captain says. An evoker raises his hands, and vexes swirl like angry moths. Let them. Panic makes them build. Build makes them gather. Gather makes them predictable. A third voice joins, older, calmer. A figure steps from shadow, robe darker than the rest. His eyes are pale, reflecting no torchlight. The sun is not gone, he says. It is contained, and containment is leverage. He taps the table where the sun symbol was. Every faction will come looking. Players, villagers, even the piglins if the trade routes fail. They will bring what we need. They will bring eyes. They will bring keys. They will open doors they should not. Outside, thunder rolls without rain. The mansion windows show a world where even clouds seem frozen. Back with Sable's refugees, the caves become their skin. They seal entrances with cobblestone, place torches in tight grids, and learn to live by the hiss of coal. Hunger becomes a constant pressure because farms do not grow without light, and animals do not wander into traps when the surface is a death field. Varro becomes the record keeper of a people turning into moles. He writes about the smell of damp stone, the way villagers flinch at every drip, the way children stop asking when morning will come and start asking how long torches last. Sable leads raids upward for resources, each one a gamble. She returns with rotten flesh and arrows, and, once, a single potato stolen from a zombie. That potato is treated like treasure, planted under torchlight in a cramped dirt patch, watched like a miracle. In the taiga, Lark's fortress grows into a machine. She builds mob grinders, not for loot, but for control. She funnels skeletons into water streams, collects arrows, crafts dispensers. She sets tripwires in the snow, hears them snap at night, and watches mobs get shredded by synchronized piston traps. The cleric villager becomes her conscience. "You are safe," he tells her one night, sitting by a furnace. Others are not. Lark does not look up from her crafting. Safety is built. If they want it, they build it. The cleric's voice softens. They do not know how. Lark finally meets his eyes. In them, she sees the same fear she has been refusing to name. Not fear of dying. Fear of being alone in a world that never forgives. She makes her second decision. She will go to the stronghold. Not for herself, but because if the sun is buried, then someone has buried it with intent, and intent can be challenged. She sends out one last smoke signal, then packs her redstone, her iron, and the Eye of Ender. The cleric insists on coming. He carries nothing but faith and a shield. Their journey becomes a sequence of tunnels and sudden violence. Above ground is too open. In the dark, every tree line is a mouth. They travel through caves, through abandoned mine shafts where cobwebs catch on armor, through dripstone caverns where stalactites hang like teeth. At one point, they pass an ancient city. The skulk glows faintly, a cold blue that makes torchlight look sick. Lark's boots hover above sensors. The cleric's breathing becomes loud. "Do not," he whispers, meaning do not wake it. Do not tempt the warden. Do not add another horror to a world already drowning. Lark nods, but her gaze lingers on the central portal frame of the city, the broken arch that suggests the world has always had doors it never finished building. A skulk shrieker sits half buried in shadow, waiting for a mistake. They pass without making one, and the relief feels like theft. The second major turning point arrives as a betrayal, quiet and intimate. In Sable's cave refuge, food runs low. A butcher villager is caught hoarding bread, crumbs in his beard, eyes wild. Villagers surround him, not with weapons, but with the kind of anger that comes from starvation. Varro tries to intervene. "We share," he says. "We survive together." The butcher shoves him. "You write while we rot." Sable steps between them, hand on sword, and sees something she did not expect. Not cruelty, but collapse. The villagers are not becoming monsters. They are becoming desperate enough to act like them. That night, someone opens the cave entrance from the inside. Sable wakes to torches sputtering, to the sound of mobs pouring in like water. A creeper detonates near the storage chest, blasting potatoes and iron into the air. A baby zombie darts through legs and bites a child villager, who screams until the scream stops. Sable fights in a tunnel so narrow her sword hits stone. Varro drags his wife deeper, journal pressed to his chest, as if words can shield flesh. In the chaos, Sable sees the butcher slipping away into a side passage, eyes reflecting torchlight like a hunted animal. He does not look back. By dawn that never comes, half the refuge is dead. The survivors sit in silence, faces grey, listening to the remaining mobs scratch at barricades. Sable's voice is hoarse. "We cannot hide forever." Varro opens his journal to a clean page and writes a single question. If the sun is buried, who holds the shovel? He will not show Sable the line yet. He's afraid of what it will turn her into. Meanwhile, Lark reaches the stronghold. Its stone bricks rise from a cavern like a fossilized fortress, mossy and damp. Silverfish skitter in the cracks, guardians of a place built for an ending. The end portal room is intact. Lark places eyes into frames, one by one. The last socket remains empty. She searches her pack, then freezes. The eye of Ender is gone. The cleric villager stands behind her, hands trembling. In his palm is the eye, held like a stolen heart. "I am sorry," he says. Lark's jaw tightens. "Why?" His voice breaks. "The mansion, the Illagers. They promised daylight for the villages if I brought them the key. They said they already have the sun contained. They said the end is the lock." Lark feels the world tilt, not from surprise, but from the cruel elegance of the trap. Smoke signals, a lone cleric, a convenient story, a guided path. Dramatic irony hangs heavy. The viewers have seen the mansion's plan. Lark has walked into it anyway. The cleric steps back, pleading. "They will restore it. They will." Lark moves faster than thought, knocking the eye from his hand, catching it mid-air. She does not kill him. She cannot. She simply says, "They will use you until you are empty." A sound echoes down the corridor. Illager footsteps, coordinated, close. Crossbows cock. An evoker's laugh slides through stone. Lark grabs the cleric by the sleeve. "Run!" They sprint through library halls, past shelves that smell like mold and old enchantments. A Vex dives at Lark's face, and she swats it away with her shield as if it is a wasp. A pillager bolt grazes her ear. The cleric trips, and Lark hauls him up without slowing. They reach a dead end, the portal room again, the frames waiting. Lark slams the eye into the last socket. The portal ignites, a black surface rippling like oil. The air hums. The Illagers pour in at the doorway, crossbows raised. "Do not," the captain calls, voice confident. "You will doom everyone." Lark meets his gaze across the room, and in her eyes is something colder than fear. "Everyone is already doomed," she says. She grabs the cleric, and together they dive into the end. The third major turning point is not the end itself, but what it reveals. The end is darker than it should be, not because it lacks light, but because it feels starved of it. The void yawns. Endermen stand like sentries, heads twitching, as if listening to a frequency only they can hear. Above the main island, the obsidian pillars rise, but the crystals atop them do not glow with their usual steady pulse. They flicker like dying lanterns. And in the center, the Ender Dragon circles, slower than legend suggests, wings beating through air that tastes stale. Lark lands hard, rolls, and looks up. The dragon's eyes are not furious. They are exhausted. The cleric whispers, "What is wrong with it?" Lark watches the crystals sputter. She understands systems. The dragon is tied to them. The end is tied to the portal. If daylight has been contained, if the sky has been edited, then the end has been drained as part of the same theft. A roar splits the air, and the dragon dives. Lark runs, placing blocks, building cover, firing arrows. The fight is brutal, not heroic. Every hit matters because there is no reset, no morning to heal morale. Between dives, Lark notices something on the far edge of the island. An obsidian structure that should not be there. A frame, half-built, shaped like a sun disk, embedded with redstone lamps that are dark. She drags the cleric toward it between attacks. On the structure is an inscription in the same harsh script Sable found, but older, carved deeper. Light is a currency. Lark's stomach knots. The Illagers did not just steal daylight. They turned it into a resource to hoard and trade. The dragon slams into the ground nearby, cracking endstone. Endermen scatter. The cleric screams. Lark pulls him behind an obsidian pillar and makes a choice that feels like sacrilege. She aims not at the dragon, but at the weakened crystals. She destroys them quickly, methodically, knowing each one is a support beam for the dragon's existence. The dragon roars, not in rage, but in pain that vibrates through the void. When the last crystal shatters, the end goes quieter, as if holding its breath. The dragon lands, stumbling. Lark approaches, sword raised, then hesitates. She sees the dragon's chest heave. She sees it as a creature bound to a system someone else has corrupted. "End it," the cleric sobs. "Please." Lark swings. The dragon dies in a storm of particles that look like ash. Experience orbs swirl bright in the dark, and for a moment, the end feels almost beautiful. A portal opens, and the dragon egg appears, silent and heavy with implication. But the sky above the end does not brighten. Nothing changes. Lark's victory tastes like metal. Back in the overworld, Sable has been moving toward her own confrontation. After the cave massacre, she refuses to be buried alive. She leads the remaining villagers through tunnels toward the woodland mansion, following rumors, following the direction of raids that keep coming with unnatural coordination. Varro walks beside her. Journal tucked away, the question burning in his pocket. He watches Sable's shoulders, how they have tightened, how her kindness has become a tool she uses less often because tools wear out. They reach the mansion at the edge of a dark forest where leaves block even the faint starlight. The building looms like a shipwreck in trees. Windows glow with torchlight, warm and mocking. Sable whispers, "They live in comfort." A villager behind her mutters, "Monsters." Varro says nothing, but his mind supplies a worse word, managers. Inside the mansion, the fourth escalation peak detonates. It is a heist turned siege. Sable and her group move room to room, axes chopping through walls to avoid hallways. Evokers summon fangs from the floor, snapping like traps. Vexes scream through ceilings. Pillagers fire from balconies. In a dining hall, Sable finds a map on the wall, a crude drawing of the overworld with biomes marked, villages circled, and a single point labeled vault beneath the mansion. She realizes the sun is not metaphorically buried, it is physically stored. They descend into the basement through a hidden stair behind a bookshelf. The air grows colder. Redstone lamps line the corridor, all unlit, as if power is being saved for something more important. At the vault door, an evoker waits, hands folded, expression almost polite. "You came," he says. Sable raises her sword. "Give it back." The evoker tilts his head. "Give back what belongs to everyone. That is not how the world works. The world works because someone holds the lever." Varro steps forward, surprising even himself. "You are starving the surface." The evoker's smile is thin. Starvation is a teacher. It shows who can build, who can obey, who can trade. Behind the evoker, through iron bars, something glows faintly. A cube of condensed light, like a trapped sunrise pulsing slowly. The sight makes every villager inhale at once, as if their bodies remember warmth. Sable's voice drops. "You are keeping it like livestock." The evoker spreads his hands. "We are keeping it like fire, dangerous, useful, yours if you kneel." Microshock. One of Sable's villagers, a young Fletcher, steps out from the group and walks toward the evoker, hands raised. "I will kneel," he says, tears cutting clean lines down his face. "Just, please." Sable reaches for him, too late. The evoker snaps his fingers, and fangs erupt from the floor, impaling the Fletcher in a single brutal motion. The body drops. The villagers scream. The evoker's tone remains calm. "Not you, the player." Sable feels something in her fracture. Rage, yes, but also clarity. This is not a negotiation. It is an experiment, and she is the subject. She charges. The battle is close and ugly. Sable dodges fangs, blocks Vex strikes, and takes a hit that drops her to half a heart. Varro, shaking, throws a splash potion he barely knows how to use. It heals Sable just enough to keep her moving. Together, they corner the evoker at the vault controls. Levers, redstone dust, a mechanism tied into the mansion's bones. The evoker laughs, coughing. "Even if you open it, you will not like what returns." Sable grabs the lever and yanks. The vault door grinds open. The trapped sunrise flares brighter, bathing the corridor in gold so intense it hurts to look at. Villagers sob. Varro's hands cover his mouth. For the first time in endless night, the color of morning exists. And then the fifth turning point hits. The light does not rise into the sky. It pours downward. The mansion trembles. The floor cracks. The light cube shatters into streams that surge through hidden channels, not toward clouds, but toward the earth, toward bedrock, toward something waiting below. The evoker's smile returns, triumphant even in defeat. "The lever was not a lock," he whispers. "It was a drain." Deep beneath the mansion, the ground answers with a sound like a throat clearing. A pulse of darkness ripples outward, extinguishing torches in the corridor one by one. Varro's journal slips from his fingers. Sable's sword feels suddenly heavy. In the end, Lark stands at the exit portal, dragon egg in her arms, watching the void. She feels it too, a tug, as if the overworld has pulled on the same thread that binds dimensions. The cleric looks at her, eyes hollow. "We killed it for nothing." Lark's voice is quiet. Not for nothing, for knowledge. She steps through the portal. She emerges in the stronghold, gasping, and the air is wrong. Torches flicker. The stone seems to sweat. From above, faintly, she hears a low, rising moan that carries through rock. She runs upward, through corridors, toward the surface, toward the tiger, toward her fortress. Along the way, she passes villagers huddled in caves, eyes reflecting torchlight like trapped animals. On the plains, Sable and Varro flee the collapsing mansion as the forest around it shudders. Trees bend as if bowing to an unseen king. The sky remains dark, but the darkness now has texture, like skulk spreading across the world's skin. From the crack beneath the mansion, a wave of black-blue growth surges outward, devouring grass, swallowing flowers, climbing trunks. Sensors pulse, shriekers bloom. Varro stares, voice barely a sound. The deep dark. Sable's face hardens. They fed it daylight. The Illagers did not simply steal the sun. They used it to wake something old, something that thrives when the world cannot see. The climax becomes a three-front struggle as the overworld transforms. In the taiga, Lark reaches her fortress just as skulk tendrils creep into the snow like ink in water. Her traps still work, but sound carries differently now. Every piston slam, every arrow thud, every villager sob becomes a beacon. She climbs her wall and sees across the trees a new glow, not sunrise, but the cold bioluminescence of skulk spreading in a widening circle from the direction of the mansion. She understands at once. The world has traded one predator for another. Lark gathers her redstone, her remaining resources, and makes a choice that is pure engineering and pure despair. She will build silence. She tears down loud mechanisms, replaces them with water flows, with magma bubble columns that kill without noise, with wool-lined corridors that swallow footsteps. She turns her fortress into a muffled tomb because survival now depends on not being heard. In the plains, Sable leads villagers toward a mountain cave, higher ground, fewer entrances. Behind them, the forest is no longer forest. It is a listening organ. A shriek erupts from the mansion's direction, a sound that makes every spine lock. The villagers freeze. Sable shouts, "Move!" They run, but one old villager lags, coughing, and a skulk sensor pulses near his foot. The world seems to inhale. From the earth, far away but approaching, comes the heavy, deliberate step of something that does not need eyes. Varro grabs the old villager's arm. "Quiet," he whispers, tears flooding. "Please." The old villager nods, tries to breathe silently, fails. A cough escapes. The step becomes closer. Sable turns back, sees the villagers' faces, and makes the cruelest decision a leader can make. She strikes flint and steel against a log pile, igniting it as a distraction, then throws it down the slope away from the group. The fire crackles loudly, greedily. The skulk pulses toward it. The heavy steps veer. The villagers survive, but Sable's hands shake afterward, because she has learned to weaponize noise like bait. Lark finally intersects their storyline when she finds Sable's group near the mountain cave, guided by the same skulk spread and the same instinct to seek defensible stone. She approaches with her shield raised, not in threat, but in habit. Sable raises her sword anyway, two survivors measuring each other in a world that punishes trust. Varro recognizes the Eye of Ender in Lark's pack, the dragon egg wrapped in cloth, the redstone dust staining her fingers. "You went to the end," he breathes. Lark nods once. It did not fix it. Sable's voice is bitter. Then what does? Lark looks past them, toward the spreading skulk, toward the mansion's distant silhouette sinking into a carpet of living dark. We stop feeding it. We stop making sound. We stop raiding. We stop building like we used to. Varro's journal is in his hands again. He flips to the question he wrote and finally shows it to them. If the sun is buried, who holds the shovel? Sable reads it, then looks at the black horizon. "No one," she says. "The shovel is the world." They retreat into the mountain and seal it with layers: stone, wool, water. Inside, Lark designs a new kind of village, one built for permanent night and permanent listening. Farms under torchlight, yes, but also under carefully placed redstone lamps, powered by silent water wheels she invents from nothing but stubbornness and a refusal to die. Days become measured in torch consumption, in the slow growth of potatoes under artificial light, in the number of footsteps allowed per hour. Children learn to play without laughing. Adults learn to speak in signs. The bell. Once an alarm becomes a relic they bury deep because its sound could kill them all. In the immediate aftermath, there is relief. The raids stop, not because illagers have repented, but because Skulk has swallowed their mansion and turned their corridors into a nest of sensors that even they cannot control. The surface becomes emptier. Mobs still roam, but now they move around patches of Skulk as if avoiding a rival predator. A new world order settles like dust. Underground enclaves form in mountains, in ravines, in strongholds repurposed as cities. Trade routes become tunnel networks lined with wool. Oceans become highways for the brave because water muffles sound and boats glide quietly over black waves. The nether becomes strangely appealing. Its lava glow a familiar kind of light, its dangers at least predictable. Sable becomes a guardian of entrances, a silent sentry who can read vibrations through stone. She misses the sun like a missing limb, but she stops dreaming about it, because dreaming is loud inside the mind. Varro becomes the historian of the dark. He writes by lamp, documenting not just what happened, but what it did to hearts. He writes about the Fletcher who tried to kneel, about the golem's fall, about Sable's fire distraction, about how leadership becomes a series of acceptable sins. Lark becomes the architect of hush. She teaches others to build without clanging, to fight without shouting, to survive without the comfort of mourning. Sometimes she stands at the sealed entrance and presses her palm to the stone, listening to the world outside like a patient listening to a storm. One night that is no different from any other. A faint warmth seeps through a crack in the rock, so subtle it might be imagined. Varro feels it first, pauses mid-sentence, and closes his eyes. "Do you feel that?" he mouths, careful not to speak. Sable touches the wall. Lark leans in, tense. The warmth fades almost immediately, swallowed by the cold. But for a moment, it was real enough to hurt. Varro writes one last line beneath his question, ink trembling. Perhaps the sun is not buried. Perhaps it is still falling. Deep above them, the sky remains unlit, a ceiling of endless night. And somewhere in that night, behind clouds that never move, The sun hangs like a locked door no one remembers how to open, shining silently into a world that has learned to whisper back.